What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Blended Couple on Fire podcast, season 3, episode 18. And today we're actually going to be talking about some survival tips for blended family gatherings. And that's coming up
right now.
Are you a Christian and you are looking to take your faith, your family, and your future to the next level?
Then this is the channel for you.
Welcome to the show. Do us a favor. If you're on right now, do us a favor and please hit the share button. It helps us get reach on that awesome thing called the Facebook. Thank you, Sarah Devine. We appreciate you saying that you're sharing and sharing and sharing is caring. And we appreciate that. So welcome to the show, everybody. My love, do you have anything that you want to say before we dive into it?
No. If I look disheveled, it's because we're preparing for an open house. And I've been doing lots of housework and laundry.
You look beautiful, my love. So just even a little bit ago, she's laying on her ottoman in the middle of the living room and she's sprawled out on it and she's like, I'm so sore already. She's like,
my back.
I'm not used to this physical labor stuff. Because at her work, she just tells people what to do.
That's not true. I don't only tell people what to do.
What else do you do?
I help. But it's just like hiring people and talking with people. My mouth will never get tired, okay? Because I talk a lot. That's what I do for my job.
This is true. She's not lying. It never gets tired. It never gets seepy.
But my back, it's like I cleaned out the Florida room today and organized it. It looks magnificent. And I vacuumed and I started doing the porch because we have to stay on our deck if it stops raining. And then I haven't done laundry and put laundry away in like a month. So
we've done laundry.
Well, we've done laundry, but I mean, it's just been like piles of clean clothes and piles of dirty clothes. Yeah. And so today I'm actually all I've been doing all day is putting laundry away and doing laundry in the midst of all the other stuff that I was doing. So my back hurts.
And something about Christy too that everybody needs to know, okay? Because she took a week off of work, right? So the last 6 months, she hasn't taken a week off of work, which is really bad for her. She needs to actually every couple months take a week off of work because she gets 4 weeks of vacation a year. Anyway, so in doing that, she always packs her week full of scheduled stuff the whole week. Like, it's insane to me. Like, I don't know why she does that. Like, it blows my mind. She'll pack it full, and then she'll be like,
doctor's appointments and salon appointments.
Yes.
And yeah,
everything.
I did all that in there too.
And then she's all like, we need to take, because Christy's youngest son plays the tuba and he's got like a sticky valve or something. And she's like, well, now we have to take that. And the place that we take, it's like an hour away from our house. I'm like,
it's Marshall Music. Okay. It's in Lansing.
It is. And I'm like, we're going to have to wait. Like, we have to wait. Like, we can't do everything this week. Like, we're trying to get our pool completely ready, even though it might rain and like, it's not going to be that warm.
We need to pray for no rain.
Yeah. But it's like, we're trying to get everything done. But then my wife's like puts everything in the calendar. I'm like, there's no way we're going to get everything done. So
we can do it
crazy
with our superpowers.
Sarah's like, you should see our piles. Yours are not bad, I promise. I don't know, Sarah. I don't know.
Well, ours aren't going to be bad now.
Christy has cleared them out now, which is really, truly a blessing. So, all right. So today's episode, what we want to talk about, and really it's just lands perfectly. We were thinking about, this open house coming up this weekend. And so we started talking about like blended family gatherings. Man, it is been a challenge, needless to say. And there's so many different things that we really could talk about. So today, anyway, we just want to talk about 3 really survival tips, things that are really going to make, these blended family gatherings, these things you cannot avoid. These are certain specific things that are almost unavoidable that you're going to have to do. And how are we going to get through it? So today we want to talk about those 3 things.
Yes. And I would like to say that every blended family is different. And what Josh and I needed to remember, which we weren't in the beginning, is not only did we try to treat our children the same, but we were trying to treat our exes the same. And you don't necessarily need to do that because we didn't need to do that because my ex didn't like freak out and we didn't have to worry about him coming and burning our house to the ground or anything like that. So you do have to be flexible and understand the 2 different roles that the 2 different exes play if they're different, 2 different people.
Yeah, because my ex would burn the house down. She's the burn the house down ex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And everybody's different, right? Everybody has different aspects. And that's why we kind of want to talk about this today, because Christy's ex is very different in the dynamic of our family than compared to my ex, which is very different in compared to the dynamic of our family. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So know your role is the first one.
Yeah.
To know your role. And it is important to, when you're in a blended family as a step parent, to know the role. Like last year, we've had this is our third open house. So Jordan's was like 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah, my daughter.
And that was our first one that we had ever done or had to do. And that was kind of different because we weren't invited to Jordan's on her other side, but everyone, like her mom, expected to be invited to ours. So that was the first time that we had to work through that. And by saying like, no, you're not invited over here because we can't trust that the cops aren't going to have to get called and everything else, which was difficult to do. Now, little Josh's, which was last year, that conversation didn't even come up because we had already established the ground rules and they had their own for him.
They did, but originally, I don't know if you remember, but originally Jordan came and said something to us about like, oh, my mom, was saying that, she would really be nice if we could just all, we could all just get along and do it together this year. And Chris and I talked about it and we're like, that's not happening. Like, we know better. We've lived through it. Like, we understand. We've done enough gatherings together.
We're not swallowing that worm.
No.
Getting on that hook.
No, we've learned the hard lesson on that. So we understand that everybody's family's dynamics are different. Everybody is different. So that leads into this year.
Yeah.
Where
Jordan and little Josh were sitting there and we were all talking about how, so Josh and Jordan's mom and her side of the family did throw each of them their own open house over there as well.
Yep.
And this year, it's my oldest open house, and it's different because his dad is not going to give him an open house. So his dad wouldn't, that side of the family wouldn't. And so I know this may be a little bit confusing now, but that side of the family wouldn't anyway because his grandpa's daughter, which is Garrett's aunt, is also graduating this year. So
it's confusing.
So he's busy, his grandpa's busy throwing her an open house. And so we understood that Garrett's only going to have one. He's not going to have two. So, of course, we all sat around and we were telling like Jordan and Josh, we're going to invite Garrett's dad to this one, which is, big of my husband to understand and know his role and then his dad's role to come over. And even Josh and Jordan were like, well, that's a completely different scenario than dealing with our mom, and that scenario. So everyone seems to understand because Garrett's dad will just show up, say hi to him, get a picture or something, and then leave. He's not going to spend the whole time. He wouldn't make a scene. He's not going to walk around and try to talk to everybody that's our friends and let everybody know I'm Garrett's dad. I'm Garrett's dad. I'm Garrett's dad. He's just not going to do that. And so it's going to be more low key. And so it's important to know your roles when it comes to events like that. Like I've never tried to overshadow at any of the events we had to go for the kids. If it's for Josh and Jordan, like tried to make it seem like I'm their mom because I have kids of my own. And no matter what I feel about her, I know what I would feel like if someone tried to replace me in my kid's life. So it's important to always know our role where Josh understands he's not Garrett's dad. He is his stepdad, which that's okay. It doesn't need to get looked at as a bad thing. And I hate it when people say, you don't say step. You don't say step. It's like, talk to the kids and ask them about what they want to be introduced as or what they want to be called.
Whatever they're comfortable with.
Like, do you want to be called my bonus kid, my step kid, my kid? Like, what do you want to be called? And it's okay to do what's best for your family.
Yeah, I agree. And, like Christy was saying, so, we're going to have, so this is a super uncomfortable position, right? So Christy's boys basically stay with us full time.
Yeah.
Almost all of the time. It's
97%.
Yeah, 97% of the time, right? So I am the father figure 97% of the time. And so we're going to have the open house here at our house. And so I know how uncomfortable it is. And their dad he doesn't like me, right? He's never even spoken a word to me in the last 10 years. Like, he doesn't like me, right? But I also understand my role. So I want to make sure that, if he comes, that he feels comfortable because this is his kid's graduation. It's not my kid, right? Now, I love Garrett, right? I absolutely love Garrett. I love Garrett like he is one of my children. I do. But I also understand the dynamic of the whole thing too. I want Garrett's dad to be able to come to our house, which is already uncomfortable, and come be part of this open house, which he's not having any part of. But I want him to come and be part of that. I want him to feel comfortable in this space because I know that it's going to make Garrett feel comfortable.
Yep.
And it's going to be what's going to be best for the whole situation. So come Saturday and his dad does come, I'm going to stay back out of the show. I'm going to move back on the sidelines. I'm going to take care of the food. I'm going to do these things to make sure that his dad has plenty of space so he feels comfortable in this position. And I think it's real easy for us to put our pride first and say, no, I've done this and I. And we have to really look at it from the standpoint of like, what's going to work best for the situation, and we need to lay our pride down, especially as a guy. And I know a lot of moms, they'll be like, I'm been the mother, right? And they get that, right? So I'm going to be deliberate. So I think it's really important that we look beyond. We're bigger than that, right? We call ourselves Christians. We're Christ followers, and we got to call ourselves to be better than that and bigger than that. And we look at the whole picture of how we fit into that and where is my role appropriate for that.
And we need to pray for no rain.
You need to quit tripping about the rain. So last year it was supposed to rain literally up until the night before it was supposed to thunderstorm. And it actually that day they were saying it was scattered thunderstorms and it never did for Josh's. So, it's just important that we, pray about it. Right. And then we just trust in God. I mean, if it rains, and we're going to make the best of it. But
yeah.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you saying that. And it's not anything that's easy. It's not anything. I mean, it's been 10 years now, and I'm glad that God has given us that much time until something like this comes up, because 5 years ago, I would say I probably wasn't ready to do that.
You probably would have said that you wouldn't want him to be invited because it's our house. I mean,
probably.
It takes time and maturity.
It does.
To do it.
It does. Okay. And the second thing, number 2, is the hard thing, and that's you need to be flexible.
Yeah, and that's where I get, I'm the type of person where Josh is not, but I am the type of person where I'm like, I feel bad because I'm like, okay, Danielle wasn't invited to each of ours.
My ex.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I try not to say their names because it's
too late. You can Google her.
There's no point. No, but his ex wasn't invited to either one of their kids' open house. So me being the person I am, I don't know if you watched the last podcast, but I was very vulnerable and open and said, Josh is better at loving me where I am and forgiving me and giving me grace than I am with him. And I can't say that if the first 2 open houses my kids would have graduated and their dad wasn't invited, I would be like, no, they're not invited. No. The ex wasn't invited to the first 2. Yeah. They're not invited to this one. Because I feel that way. I'm like such a rule follower. I'm not flexible at all. Thank God that God gave me a husband like him because he has helped me see the error of my ways because it's okay to be flexible sometimes. And you laughing? I said sometimes.
You're so cute, yeah.
Sometimes.
We're sliding that in there, people.
Sometimes. Not all the time.
It's okay to be flexible sometimes.
I have to keep him straight sometimes, too.
Sometimes.
Because he just would be going all over the place. I'm the one with all over the place with the words, okay? But in life, you would be breaking all the rules, going all over.
Yeah, I would.
But
sure.
I was actually nervous to have that conversation with him and to say, hey, we really need to invite their dad because he's not going to give Garrett an open house. Garrett's only going to have one open house and his dad needs to be able to come to it. And he was just like, of course, sure. And of course, when Garrett originally had the conversation with his dad said he's not coming because it's at our house and no, I'm not coming. And he ended up calling back Garrett later and saying, I guess I'll stop by because I think he understood that he needs to be flexible too for his son, but we do need to be flexible. I know it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable for Garrett's dad, and it's going to kind of be awkward and uncomfortable for me because he is just going to be sitting there silently judging everything because that's what he does. He just sits back and is like,
I don't think you give yourself enough credit, though, for flexibility. I think with flexibility with you have to get competitive with it. That's like your nature. Mm-hmm. So more towards the beginning of our relationship, my son played hockey. And so we want to talk about blended family gatherings. It was 2 or 3 times a week we were forced to be around. Christy loved it. And so she was flexible in that though. She didn't say, I'm not going. She never said that. And I know
Even though there was scenes made all the time at my expense.
All the time, right? And you always handled them beautifully, right? You have always handled them with grace and awesomeness, like you always have. So her flexibility. Now, there's a lot of reasons why.
There was one time I didn't.
No, but you were calm about it though.
Oh yes, I'm always calm when I'm about ready to
fight somebody. When it's about to go, when there's going to be bloodshed. So, but the thing is you have been flexible, you know, and I know you do it in a competitive way, and you do it like, well, I'm not going to let him go if she's going to be there, you know, so you go, but you still go though.
Yeah.
You still are like, no, she can take him. She never said that, you know, she understood how important it was that I was there as a dad. And so she made sure that she was there. So the flexibility thing is sometimes you do it through grit teeth. I mean, sometimes we have to do it through grit teeth. I don't want this to be done this way on this Saturday. I don't want it to be this way, but I know it's the only way it can be done. And I understand that. And it's time to be flexible for that. And it's not about Josh. This day is not about me. You know, and to be 100% honest with you guys, I'm just going to be real. There's only two people really that it's focused on that day. Number one, it's the graduate. And number two, it's the mom. And it's those usually the two people that care the most about it, right? A lot of this that's going to be going on Saturday is really for her, right? It's for her and her memories and her pictures. And that's what she wants. She's a mom, and we understand that.
I take lots of pictures.
Right? I mean, we're picking out outfits. We're making sure the hair's done just right. Right? We want to make sure all this stuff is done beautifully for her. And so I know for her to be best at ease is for this day to go is that I need to be flexible at the highest degree. And I'll be willing to do that all day long. I will stand and have a conversation with this man if that's what it's going to take to do. I'll do that. I'll suck up my pride and I'll do those things because ultimately it's about our children. I want our children.
Skip it to number 3.
Yeah, you're right. But still flexibility. Sorry, we're not skipping to 3 yet. But still flexibility though. I still want my kids to know that I love them and I care about the way that they remember things that's happened in the past. And they don't remember the noise of the nastiness and the attitudes and, you know, the mean mugging and all this stuff that can go on that's real easy to do and feels very justifiable. But at the same time, you know, I just want to make sure that our children have good memories of these things that happened in the past. Agree?
I do.
Oh, she agrees as she drinks her coffee and loves it. So the number 3rd one, right, is we have to keep it about the kids.
So that I think is one of the hardest things to remember and to remind yourself when you are part of a blended family is, like Josh was saying, the open house is about Garrett. So, and me for my pictures and stuff, but it is about Garrett. And I would hate for Garrett to look back on his open house memory and him not have a memory with his dad. And because his dad isn't giving him one, like I said, that side isn't giving him one. So he would have no memories of an open house with his dad or his grandpa, you know, on his dad's side. So we invited, you know, that whole side of the family, and they're not a large family. You know, Garrett's dad is an only child, and his grandma, Garrett's dad's mom, passed away this past year.
Yep.
And so it's just his dad and his wife. And so we invited them. They're more than welcome to come. And
they will.
Yeah. And they will. And I think it's just in the beginning though, like when Josh and I first got together, it was hard to say, okay, when is it about the kids and when is it time to like hold our ground about stuff?
Yeah.
You know, so that is very hard in a blended family. And what him and I came to the conclusion on is if we weren't doing it with a malicious heart, like with the intent to hurt the other parent, but it was to keep the peace and we had peace in our heart about the decision, then that's the decision we went with.
Yeah.
So it's no different than like Jordan's open house. It could have been easily, you know, her mom wants to be like, well, she's my daughter and I should be able to come. Well, let's sit down and talk about this. Like they are throwing her an open house on that side, which we're not invited to, which is fine because we weren't going to go anyway, because we were throwing her our own. And what will happen if that person comes? We invite that person, we say they're welcome, and then it comes. It's usually, we had lived it for years. Scenes are made. It's walking around, you know, being very loud, you know, talking about I'm her mom, I'm his mom, mom,
Yeah.
and just very volatile and toxic, which would cause then Jordan's or little Josh's memories of their open house with us and on their side to be bad.
Yeah.
So those were the times we were like, no, it's time to hold our ground on this. I'm really sorry. It's not like she was going to miss out on an open house. She was having her own.
Which is keeping it about the kids.
It is keeping about the kids. Yeah. Sometimes, though, we had to be like, no, we're not doing that. And then we'd have to sit down and be like, that's not really right. Yeah. You know, we need to. I mean, there was a hockey story where we were given a couple pins. I went up and asked the coach.
State championship pins.
Yeah. Hey, you know, them state champ pins, can, you know, Josh and I get one? And the coach was like, actually, they're just for the kids. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, no big deal. I didn't know. So I was just asking him. Well, later on, he came up to me and was like, hey, you know, I had a couple pins left over. I just thought you and Josh would like these. And I'm like, oh, thanks so much. You know, so we put them on our little jackets that we had.
And we were kind of friends with the guy anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, we were.
Yeah.
And my old company that I used to work for, you know, would subcontract him to do work. So I like, we knew him.
Yeah.
You know, so we didn't think anything of it. We just put the pins on our little lapels on our jackets. No big deal at all. Until there was like a huge scene made by little Josh's mom, Jordan's mom, that, you know, she's the mom. She should have that pin. No one else should have that pin. And I was like so mad. She was causing scenes in front of all the kids, multiple times. This happened 2 or 3 times. And it wasn't just about the pin. It was just about everything. And so we go back to the hotel room and little Josh comes walking in and he's like, what's going on between mom and Christy now? You know, and I let him take him off to the side. I didn't even tell him where I was going. I did not want to give this woman this pin. I didn't, because it wasn't even about the pin. Like, I couldn't understand why she was throwing such a huge just scene about this pin. But that was a moment where instead of me being like, no, I'm not giving her that pin. No, I needed to say it is about Josh. It's about little Josh.
Yeah.
And this is causing so much turmoil over a little pin. I'm just going to take her this pin.
And she did not deserve the pin.
No. And I'm just going to take her the pin. You know, so I go up, I knock on her hotel room, and I'm like, here, you can have the pin. And of course, that leads into her being like, I know that you've always been jealous of me and Josh's relationship when we were married. I mean, and I had to bite my tongue. But now, 7 years later, 6 years later, do I even care about that pin? Would I still be wearing that pin around on my lapel right now?
Right.
No. And so looking back, I'm so glad I gave her that pin. I didn't in the moment want to give it to her, but I had to, I prayed about it, quick prayer. And I'm like, okay, it's about him. He's going to look back. His mom's throwing this huge fit over this pin.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't Christy just give her the pin? You know, I just did.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I'm so grateful that I did, because that pin would probably be in the garbage. Honestly, I throw stuff away. Okay. If we don't need it anymore, it's gone. So it's in the garbage.
So I want to tell everybody the backstory, the little bit of tidbit on the back of this, okay? Just so everybody understands. She gives my ex-wife this pin. She comes back later and she talks to the coach. Christy talks to the coach, and she's like, hey, by the way, I just went ahead and gave her the pin. She goes, oh, that's crazy. Christy's like, why? And she goes, Al already went and gave her a pin. His pin. So what she ended up doing is she took the pin that Christy gave her and she gave that to her mother. She didn't give it back. Because she's just like, screw you. And that's a hard thing to rise above that. I mean, it's like, listen to me. That's like, you want to cut people's tires. Like, you want to be mean to people when they act like that. But if we keep it about the kids, these gatherings that we're together, ultimately later down the road, yes, it may be 5, 6, 7 years later, like Christy's saying, it's not about the pin. It's about the principle that we still made the children first. Christy made my son, not even her son, made him first in that situation. And doing so has paid off in spades. It's absolutely paid off in spades. I mean, Christy's relationship with my son is incredible. We were just talking about with another couple today that we had a Zoom call with. And, you know, I was sharing with them. I'm like, you know, little competitive thing, you know, Christy tells my son that she loves him all the time. And he digs his heels in and he won't say it. And he's 19 years old now. He just doesn't say it back. Now she knows he does, but nonetheless, he doesn't say it back, right? He just doesn't say it back. Well, everybody, you know, if you've been watching our podcast, you know that Christy's beloved dog, we had to have him put down a few weeks ago. And just out of nowhere, Josh came up and he gave Christy a hug. And that's a huge thing. You know, it's just like, he loves her. Like, he absolutely adores her. And, you know, it's just, it takes years sometimes for that stuff to come to fruition, you know, for us to see the fruit from some of this stuff. But we have to trust in the process of it. You know, some of these gatherings we don't get a choice of. It's not like Christy wasn't going to go to the state championship with me. And she should have went with me. I mean, absolutely. And yeah, she has to deal with Satan himself, come out of my ex-wife, you know, which we are funny about that, but it was horrible. It was rotten.
It was horrible.
It was horrible and rotten. And she had to eat a lot of crow.
The first few years.
She had to eat a lot of crow in all of this, but she stayed strong and she kept doing the right thing. And she did it for the right reasons. And she's reaping the rewards now because of it, because now we have a son, my son loves and adores and looks up to Christy. And that is just an amazing thing.
Yeah, because just think about it. Okay, I used to, a lot of you guys don't know, but before Josh and I got together, I'm embarrassed to even say it. It's so immature, but I used to fight all the time, like get into physical fights. And I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Like every single weekend, go out drinking at the bar. I'd be in a bar fight. And when him and I got together and I had to start dealing with all this, that's not how Christy dealt with her feelings of anger. My feelings of anger was always solved with violence. And that's the time when I don't talk, you know, when I'm mad and I'm ready to fight about something, my mouth closes and my fists would go. And I am so proud of myself for those times because that's not the way I wanted to handle it, but I really wanted to do what God wanted me to do. I really wanted to do what he wanted me to do. I really want to get to heaven and have him say, well done, good and faithful servant. And that sticks out in my head all the time. And looking back now, if I would have gave in, which one time I almost did, it was like the very first hockey game we went to, I called her outside and was very calm, cool, collected, and was like, what is the matter with you? You know, type of thing. And she ended up freaking out and going back inside and taking it out on him because she didn't want to address things with me. But other than that, if I would have gotten in a physical altercation with their mom, to this day, I could never take that back, ever. His kids would remember me as the person that
beat up their mom.
Yeah. And I would be so disappointed. In my testimony, we've tried to tell all of our kids, look what God has done for us. Look what God does for us. Look how God can change us when we really just submit to him and really do what he wants us to do. Yeah. And sometimes a lot of the times, you are the person that feels like you're getting the short end of the stick. You are the one that feels like you have to swallow your pride the most. You are the one that has to apologize. You are the one that has to turn the other cheek. You are. But I can lay down at the end of the night and be proud of the person that I am. And that's important. To know your role in a blended family. Yeah. Don't ever try to replace the other parent. You are their step parent. You're their bonus parent. However you want to put it, that's okay. That God ordained, you're married now, and that is where God wants you to be. And there's no point of trying to pretend it any other way. Love it the way that it is. Be proud of it the way that it is. You know, so know your role, accept your role, be proud of your role, be flexible, you know, in the things that you're doing. I am not. It was a lot of God time and Josh time to get me to be flexible in things. And it was hard to keep it about the kids always for me personally. I'm just speaking about me, the 3 points about me. I know that he had his own things that he had to deal with. I mean, he was constantly getting his pride because I have 2 boys, okay? They'd go to their dads. My oldest is not scared to share his opinion about things from the time he could first start talking. And when they would go to their dads and their dad would talk bad about him, call him names, call me names, sing songs about me, all this stuff, they would come home and Garrett would tell us about it. You know, Garrett would try a couple times, try to call him the same name that his dad would call him. And it's hard to keep it about the kids and know your role and be flexible in those times.
It is hard. And I think, you know, you almost have to look at it as a competitive thing, you know, like, okay, you know, I'm going to really work hard at this and I'm going to be competitive about it. And I think a lot of these things, knowing your role, understanding your flexibility in the situation and keeping it about your kids, you have to look at it as a challenge and say, okay, I'm going to rise to the challenge with this. And then also sharing openly your concerns with your spouse, having a safe
That's a good one.
place with your spouse where you're going to be like, listen, I got to complain about this. I'm going
Yeah.
to complain about your ex. I'm going to complain about it. I'm going to tell you how unfair it is. I'm going to tell you all these things, and then I'm going to cry about it, and then we're going to move past it. And then we're going to get back to like, okay, we're locked and loaded and ready to go. We're ready to fire off again. And we're going to fail sometimes. We're going to fail at this stuff. We're going to let things slip out of our mouths that shouldn't be coming out of our mouths in front of the kids. And we're going to have to be like, okay, we need to not do that, and things of that nature, but we have to understand, like, ultimately, if we want to see the fruit in the end, we have to put the work in now. And that's a hard thing to do. And, Chris and I talked just recently about things that we do regret, things that we wish we did do differently in the beginning, but it's too late. So the best we could do is maybe help you see the error of our way and say, hey, before it gets to be too late, do these things now. As hard as it is, as ugly as it is, and as unfair as it feels, ultimately it's what's going to be best, because that's what Christ has called us to do anyway. And he'll sustain us through it, and he will grow us through it, and he will take care of our kids and their attitudes and, all that stuff that we have no control over. We think we have more control over it than you think that you do, if we stay true to what God's asking us to do.
Well, I think a lot of it is too, for Josh and I, if you haven't ever suffered from an addiction and had to go through the 12 steps, I'm sorry, okay? Because we're this far ahead because we did, okay?
It's so true.
The 12 steps is so amazing. So we learned healing for ourselves about, to focus on the things that you can control and not the things that you can't control. Don't get upset about the things that you can't control, and don't even be upset about the things you can control. Change it. If it's something you can control, then change it. Don't bother being upset about it. And so him and I had a deep understanding that we can't fix one another. And the way the other person was feeling at that time are valid feelings. They're allowed to feel that way, and we just need to talk it through with them. So we would go behind closed doors and talk about, like, I would approach him about his kids. And I would be like, I need to talk to you about your kids. But he always had a deep understanding. Like, I am not going to love his kids the same way as him. I'm not. They're not mine, and I have 2 kids. So it's like, I'm not going to love his kids like I love my kids. It's different. And it's the same way. He's not going to love my kids exactly the same as he loves his kids. And so we would try, instead of being against the person or blaming the person for that, which that's out of our control, that's a natural human thing, we would try to embrace that and help them through that. Yeah. So if I was frustrated, I'm going to get frustrated with his kids before he does. And he's going to get frustrated with my kids before I do.
So true.
We're going to go behind closed doors. I'm going to help him be where I'm at with my kids in that specific situation. Yeah. When he's super mad about it and he's like, whatever, and he wants to come talk to me about it, I'm going to say, well, this is the way that I'm feeling. This is the way I've decided. As long as it's not causing a divide in our family or blatantly disregarding something that he said in the home, because he's still the man of the house, he would follow my lead with my kids. Same him with me.
Yep.
And he would try to help me when I was frustrated with his kids, say, babe, this is what I've decided, and you need to understand this and this and this with them. And this is the way that I feel about it. And I had to accept that if that was what he wanted to do with his kids, as long as it wasn't, like I said, making a division in our home or making something unfair, then we are here to help one another, especially in blended families. As spouses, you need to help one another with each other's kids, because you're going to have different feelings about them, Well,
I think it's hard too, when we want to love each other's kids the same, and it took us a long time to understand, like, it's okay that we don't.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, that's a hard spot to get.
I don't not love them. It's like saying if you don't agree with somebody, you hate them. That's not true.
No, and that's a good analogy to that. But, when we talk about being part of mixing with our ex's families, that's some of the most toxic ways. Now, sometimes you can have the whole TV show, the Brady Bunch, and everybody gets along, and it's like, co-parenting is the most magical thing.
Because they're so exes.
And it's so, in their situation, yes. Right. Everybody died. It was wonderful. But I'm just kidding. But the point is that, not everybody gets the opportunity to have wonderful co-parenting. That's the goal. Like, I wish it was. I wish her ex and I got along beautifully. I wish it was that way. And I wish the same, that she got along with my ex. I wish it was all grand. It's just most likely and most of the time it's not that way. So we look at our kids and say, okay, we got to put you guys first and foremost. Sorry, Sarah. And so we got to put the kids first and foremost. And in what way do we do that? We follow what God tells us in our household. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And we do that. We say, okay, well, we got to make sure that we're putting my spouse first. Let's go behind closed doors. Let's talk. Let's go through these things. Let's honor each other through it, right? I need to love my wife the way that Christ loved the church. I need to listen to her. I need to care about the things that she says. And I need to say to myself, okay, these are the things that I think that we should do. I need you to hear me out and I'll hear you out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make some decisions and let's move forward, but let's keep the kids at the front.
Because your spouse still should come first.
Always.
And that's what's hard in a blended family.
Always. And it is hard. We didn't learn. That took time. That takes time to do that stuff.
You got to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Because that's why the second marriages with kids, the divorce rate's higher than first marriages, because it is very, very hard to put your spouse above your kids. And you guys have got to be in it for the long haul. You have to be willing to put the time in for the fights and the arguments and everything else, as long as you keep it respectful and not call each other names, and have to come at it from a understanding of that person's point of view. Now, we're part of some of the secular step parent groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
And what I see there is appalling to me. It's appalling. Like, I see these women posting, and it's mainly women, posting in this group, talking so bad about their husbands and their kids, talking so bad about their husband's kids in general, and about how I don't care, nacho kid. And I am like, that is so not the correct way to do it. And you can tell, you can't expect unsaved to act like the saved. And you can tell the difference between Christian and non-Christian. Like, that is not the way that God would want you to be talking about your husband or talking about your husband's kids. He wouldn't want you to do that. So if you're part of those groups, please keep that in mind. Don't get on that train like, burn them with the pork. Yeah, like, don't do that.
No, and there's nothing wrong with venting, okay, and being upset, but we don't have to bash.
But we shouldn't vent on social media.
Well, we first off should definitely not do that. But I think it's important, though, that we understand the value in talking things out, but also in a respectful way, right? Mm-hmm. We can vent and be upset about something, about what's going on. But first, and that's why I'm glad you brought this up, because first and foremost, the person I should be talking to first about it is my spouse.
Well, God. And then your spouse.
Okay. Well corrected, right? So let's go to God, talk to God, and then let's talk to our spouse about it. Let's go there first. Together. Okay. Let's go to God, then God together, and then to each other. Okay. And that's the way we would do it. Anything else? So, but that's the way that it should be done, though. And then if you want to vent to your girlfriends or whatever, it's not about bashing. There's no value in that.
No.
There's no value in that. And she says nacho because there is this type of method. I think it's called nacho.
Yeah.
But it's a form of parenting where it's like nacho kid, so I don't participate in anything to do with your children now.
For the most part, it's dumb.
For the most part, it is. There's a little bit of value in it, in my opinion. There's a little bit of value in it. And I think that's where it's like, okay, you're the one that corrects your kids, but the decisions and stuff need to come from higher up as a team. So, and they're saying nacho is like none of that. Like,
you're not supposed to care.
Not supposed to care. You're not supposed to basically talk to the other kids. You're not supposed to have any interaction, whatever. And I don't believe in any of that. I think there's no value in that. I don't think there's no love, no compassion, no combining.
Well, we don't believe in a lot of dumb stuff, so.
Yeah, and that's only dumb stuff. That's what that is. That's only dumb. So it's a big group though, and it is. It just turns into like this chicken neck kind of complaint session, like, oh, let me show you this text message from so and so, and
screenshots and posting it on there. I'm like,
yeah. Of the complaints.
How childish can we be?
But to reel it back to what we were talking about, is having some tips. Survival tips of blended family gatherings is, number one, it's tough. It's hard. It's not easy. It takes time. And luckily, by the time you probably get pretty good at it, it doesn't matter anymore because your kids aren't going to be doing anything you're not going to be forced in those positions anymore anyway. But the point is be calm about it. Make sure you connect well with your spouse on it first, and use some of the things that we said. Know your role, understand it, and be okay with your role. Mm-hmm. Don't let your pride get the best of you. Be flexible. Know that it's going to take flexibility, and then putting your kids first. Put the children first at all times. Make sure that they're put first for these situations. And I mean, our goal is to make sure that they get older, they get married, and they don't have blended families.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want that to happen. We want them to see the value in relationship and in marriage and in family. It's important. You have anything else you want to add before we shut it down today, babe?
I don't think so.
No. All right. We want to thank everybody for being here. If you live local in Michigan, you can come to an open house this Saturday. You're welcome to come.
Yeah, please come. Because
Yeah.
if it rains, hardly anybody's going to come. Yeah. I need everybody that's brave and with umbrellas.
Brave. The weather. It'll be fine. Everybody pray for the weather to be awesome and wonderful. So
just from 2 to 6, just 4 hours.
It'll be good. It's going to be good. Also, perfectlyblendedevent.com. If you're looking for us to come and talk to your church about blended families, I mean, it's a touchy subject. It's hard. See, Sarah's like, I'm coming, rain or shine.
Well, she's coming to help too.
Yeah. Perfectlyblendedevent.com. You can go there, sign up, and we can have a conversation about coming to your church and talking about blended families.
This
and why
is
it's
needed because it's needed.
It's so needed.
Every Christian couple that we talk to, even if they're not Christian, and I talk to them about needing support for blended and step families, they're like, they need it too. Now, they don't want the Christian side of it. They don't want the God side of it, which that's what we're about, because that's what makes God is what makes everything.
Yeah. It's what makes it work.
In general. I mean, he just makes everything.
Yeah.
So he is, I am. And so it's a needed community.
Yeah. So stay tuned. We're going to be pushing more stuff out in regard to blended family ministry, perfectly blended stuff. So we have some stuff in the pipeline that we're working on. We will see you guys next week live on Tuesday at 7.
Bye.